March in the ranks hard-pressed, in the road unknown, a route through a heavy wood with muffled steps in the darkness, our army foiled with loss severe, and the sullen remnant retreating, till after midnight glimmer upon us the lights of a dim lighted building. We come to an open space in the woods, and halt by the dim lighted building. 'Tis a large old church at the crossing roads, now an impromptu hospital. Entering but for a minute, I see a sight beyond all the pictures and poems ever made. Shadows of deepest black, just lit by moving candles and lamps, and by one great pitchy torch stationary, with wild red flame and clouds of smoke. By these crowds, groups of forms vaguely I see on the floor, some of the pews laid down. At my feet, more distinctly, a soldier, a mere lad, in danger of bleeding to death. He's shot in the abdomen. I stanch the blood temporarily. The youngster's face is white as lily. Then, before I depart, I sweep my eyes o'er the scene, fain to absorb it all. Faces, varieties, postures beyond description, most in obscurity. Some of them dead. Surgeons operating. Attendants holding lights. The smell of ether. The odor of blood. The crowd. Oh, the crowd of the bloody forms. The yard outside also filled. Some of the bare ground, some on planks or stretchers, some in the depth, spasm, sweating. An occasional scream or cry. The doctor shouted orders or calls. The glisten of the little steel instruments catch the glint of the torches. These I resume as I chant. I see again the forms. I smell the odor. Then hear outside the orders given, fall in, my men fall in. But first I bend to the dying lad. His eyes open. A half smile gives he me. Then the eyes close, calmly close, and I speed forward to the darkness, resuming marching, ever in darkness marching, on in the ranks, the unknown road still marching. This is a poem called March in the Ranks Hard Pressed, and the Road Unknown by Walt Whitman. Here on part 2 of Walt Whitman. Hello and welcome back to the library. And let's be cheery after that one. And before we get lost amongst the stacks, I want to reintroduce my guests coming all the way from sunny California, joining us in this cold, rainy, gray, miserable Vermont day that apparently attracted you for the first time ever to come to live in Vermont. The person that needs no nickname, the mononymous Claire.
Test.
Welcome, Claire.
Hi, thank you.
Again, thanks for picking this topic. After learning a little bit about Walt Whitman's early life, do you have any questions or anything you want to ask or any inquiries of any sort before we get started?
I have so many questions. A lot of them have to do with what the fuck is up with America. It's just, it all boils down to like, it's a mess. The nimble fingers of child labor, the controversial opinion to abolish slavery. I'm confused, but nevertheless, he persists, and I can't wait to get into his work.
So we left off the publication of Leaves of Grass at the end of part 1, right? Whitman had paid out of his own pocket of the first edition of this book, and about 795 copies were printed, I think. I mentioned in the first part that the book was published near Independence Day on 1885, but it's not really known the actual date. Some of the advertisements in Brooklyn newspapers are from late June of that year, but July 4th still plays more in the narrative of this author, so a lot of people like to just say it's then. Whitman also had a huge hand in the physical actual publication itself, overseeing how the poems were printed and giving detailed instructions to the publishers, who were the Rome brothers. So the brothers Rome brothers.
Rome as in?
Rome.
Rome, where the cattle roam free?
No, as in the capital of Italy, as in the empire.
Right, Rome.
Yes, that one.
Rome.
Yeah,
with an H.
Yes, where the Swiss Guard live.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. The title is actually a clever pun. Have you ever thought about the title Leaves of Grass before?
I have, and I've often wondered, like, why? Why are we talking about that?
Yeah, because grass
is leaves.
No, grass doesn't have leaves.
Well, what is it if it's not leaves? I thought it was just a bunch of leaves.
No, it's blades of grass.
Blades.
Yeah. The grass portion of the title, so leaves of grass, the latter one, is actually a riff off a term publishers used to use back in the day to describe publishing works of very little value, minor works to say, while leaves is
so
just...
they called minor works or like unworthy works, they called that grass?
Yeah, it's just grass.
Oh, I love that. That's so petty.
Yeah. While leaves is another term for like pages.
Right, a leaf of paper.
Yeah, exactly.
Leaflet, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
The book was...
Leaves of grass, so like a bunch of, like a stack of trash, kind of.
Yeah, it's clever.
The pages of trash novel. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
The book was only 95 pages long and contained only 12 poems, which...
How big were the pages?
You know, I don't know. But 12 poems,
Are we on
95
8.5 by 11 at that time?
You know, I have no clue. If I get my hands on a first edition of Leaves of Grass, I will not let you know. I'll tell you that.
Shout out in the comments if you happen to know the dimensions of Walt Whitman's first pages. That's a little window into how my mind works.
Yeah. 4 by 6 inches.
That's so cute.
Yeah, it's cute. Some of the poems in this edition, so the very first ones are Song of Myself, which we recited.
Iconic.
Yeah. And I Sing the Body Electric. The first edition, we mentioned those in the first episode. The first edition also didn't have a table of contents. The poems were not titled. And only a quarter of the printed pieces had the well-known green binding associated with it today. So he couldn't even afford binding it in an appropriate way. Only 200 copies had that.
Wow.
Whitman didn't even put his name on the work, though this was probably because he wanted to keep himself anonymous, not because he didn't want to portray himself as, you know, Walt Whitman, but because he wanted to portray that he was speaking as America as a whole, crossing gender and racial divides. That's the theory.
Regardless of his identity.
And he writes, and a lot of people write about this, about him, regardless of identity, he writes for America. The book did not sell.
Oh.
Though Whitman...
Flop Tina boots.
Yeah, Whitman claimed it sold out. Whitman actually would send copies to known authors and poets at the time. And this would be an incredibly intelligent thing to do. For one of the poets, one of the authors he sent a copy to was none other than Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Heard of him.
Yeah.
Grew up with his great-granddaughter. Shout out Kathleen.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's a deep cut.
Deep cut.
Very deep cut. I mean, the great-great-granddaughter, whatever it is. Emerson, you know, is one of America's best well-known intellectual authors, a transcendentalist. I mean, if you don't know that name, I don't know. I guess if
help read a book.
You also should know what Walt Whitman's name is, but whatever.
If you don't know who Ralph Waldo Emerson is, you probably aren't listening to this podcast.
Yeah, or failed all of American high school English. In fact, Emerson once wrote an essay titled "The Poet," right, which called for the United States of motherfucking America to develop a unique urban poet that could describe the American youthful country that it was, warts and all. Whitman read this essay, which was published around 11 years before the first edition of his little chapbook, and it said that he was deeply inspired by it. And Emerson would be a huge proponent of Whitman's poetry early on, all throughout his life, but specifically early on was when he was most influential. In a letter to Whitman, Emerson responded in part saying, quote, "I am not blind to the worth of the wonderful gift of Leaves of Grass. I find it the most extraordinary piece of wit and wisdom that America has yet contributed. I am very happy in reading it, as great power makes us happy. It meets the demand I am always making of what seemed the sterile and stingy nature, as if too much handiwork or too much lymph in the temperament were making our Western wits fat and mean." Unquote.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wordsmith.
I mean, incredibly intelligent writer.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Ralph Waldo Emerson. Whitman then made a shrewd move. He publishes the letter in full in the New York Tribune as a way to advertise his book. This was, of course, without Emerson's permission.
Consent's always been hard for mankind, hasn't it?
Uh-huh. Yeah, it doesn't matter who you are.
I don't care who you are, where you're from, what you do, as long as you fucking me. Oh.
Pulled a fast one on me there. Of course, things weren't all peaches and cream in Walt's life, and this is going to be a theme. For as soon as something nice happens, something bad happens in Walt's life.
Ain't that the truth, sweetheart?
His father passes away a few weeks after the first edition was published.
Oh.
Walt had taken up the paternal role in his family before, temporary in some places, as he was the second born, and his father suffered from both depression and alcoholism. But now he would be the person they turned to when times were of need, as his older brother was a merchant marine and not around. Walt also began working on his second edition of Leaves of Grass only a few months after his first edition. In 1856, the second edition was published, this time with an additional 20 poems, and all of them now had titles. It was with this edition that he began to socialize a more serious literary crowd in New York City, including Henry David Thoreau.
Heard of him.
Another big one. And became
another big one.
Yep. He also became a regular at Fath's Salon, a hangout for bohemian artists in New York. It was a bar.
A bar.
Yeah. Of course, his books weren't paying the bills, so he kept his job as a newspaper person. 4 years later, in 1860, the third edition was published. It was the February of that year when Whitman received a letter from a Boston publisher. They were publishers William Thayer and Charles Eldridge, who really zhuzhed up this edition, as Whitman had begun really writing poetry in a hugely accelerated pace. This
sounds like it.
Yeah.
Releasing an album a year style.
Yeah, but it's also like releasing an album a year, but also touching up on every single previous album,
remastering everything before,
and
every time,
and rewriting a lot of those poems
and giving them titles.
Yeah.
Wow.
The Walt Whitman Archive says this about this. Walt Whitman Archive says this, quote, Whitman feeling confined as an authentic poet now that he had been offered actual royalties.
There you go. Pay artists.
Readily agreed, and Thayer and Eldridge invested heavily in the stereotype plates for Whitman's idiosyncratic book, over 450 pages of varied typeface and odd decorative motifs.
Fun. Gay.
It was
gay. He's flagging again.
Yep. It was visually chaotic and carefully tended to by Whitman, who traveled to Boston to oversee the printing, unquote. I think it really cannot be overstated how much his expertise in printing newspapers made his poetry possible. Nowadays, we have fancy tools like Microsoft Word to help us with margins and editing, but this was a skillful task that required a lot of time.
Art and science back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Only a few people can do it.
I only am loving him more and more as podcast goes on.
Mm-hmm. A lot of this you will find. I felt a lot of the same, except for a few things. But humans are complicated. This edition also began to expand sexuality and the body with two clusters of poems called "Children of Adam" and "Calamus" being published. So, if you read, Leaves of Grass, you see these sections, which are clusters of poems that were all just compiled one on top of another, one on top of another. And that's what we're talking about. So he would write these sections that had these themes.
Okay.
Which the first one, Children of Adam, spoke about the male-female sexual relation. And the second section celebrated man's homoerotic love of other men.
Hell yeah.
More on
LGBs.
More on Whitman's purported sexuality later, right? His time in Boston also showed a more equitable society to black and white relations, even compared to New York City at the time.
Not black and white relations.
Yeah, right? It's
Sterile.
crazy. In the 1850s, this is not me saying that things were equal. That's not...
Right.
That almost literally doesn't even exist with how institutional racism still prevails in our society. but he witnessed African Americans being treated more fairly. They were able to share things like tables with white people.
Wow.
And even served as jurors. Like,
we call that progress.
in that back then. This third edition finally began to sell fairly well, particularly to a very specific literary crowd. Of course, we also mentioned the novel that sold the most in his lifetime in the first episode, and bluntly, there was never any edition of Leaves of Grass that would match that. Deteriorating conditions also of the economy made investing in companies anywhere in the U.S. of motherfucking a very risky move. Stop me if this sounds familiar. And the Boston publishers made some pretty bad business decisions. In early of 1861, Thayer and Elridge filed for bankruptcy and sold the plates for the third edition to a different Boston publisher. It's irrelevant who he was, but effectively he started to publish pirated copies of this edition for decades.
Wow. The American dream.
Yeah, very American that there would be pirated versions of one of the more important pieces of media. This meant marketing and selling any other of the copies of this edition very challenging for the rest of Whitman's life. It also made the third edition the most commonly accessible edition when he was alive, because they just kept selling it. It was almost, I don't know if you ever heard the story about the Grateful Dead, but they had a really challenging time when the mob got into pirating LPs. And the Grateful Dead was one of the biggest ones because they would just like slap the logo on it and say, "It's the Dead." Wow. Yeah.
Tale as old as time.
Tale as old as the Grateful Dead, which are the literally the oldest people in the world. They're older than Whitman. They're older than life itself. So we were right in the year 1861. Guess what happens here?
1861. The Civil War starts.
That's right. Yes. After what could be described as a moderate anti-slavery candidate is elected, and a bunch of landed gentry in this certain part of the country seceded because they wanted to continue to own slaves, things got out of control. George Washington Whitman, one of his younger brothers, enlists very early on in the war. Whitman's other brothers, so we're going to talk about his family in the war, what happens. One of them, Andrew Jackson Whitman, also enlists, but he dies after only serving 3 months, possibly of tuberculosis. He was a pretty sickly human being.
Oh, boy.
Walt was in his 40s, and he would never enlist personally. Talking about the other ones that possibly could have, I mean, one of his brothers was in a mental asylum for physically attacking his mother, while another was, had mental and physical disabilities that he could not enlist. So That's all of them. We just nailed them all.
And that's the Whitman family.
His older brother had now had to take care of the extended family that wasn't in the war, and he was also a merchant marine. I mean, Whitman was like 41, 42, so his older brother was even older than that. For the first year and a half of the war, Whitman stayed in Brooklyn writing long-form poems. It was one day in December of 1862 when he saw the name G.W. Whitmore on the casualty roster from the Battle of Fredericksburg.
Oh.
In short, that battle was one of those that did not go very good for the Union Army. Walt feared that this person was a misspelling of his brother's name, George Washington again. Okay, so he headed straight down to Virginia to find his bro. On his journey, he was pickpocketed.
Bros before pros.
Yeah, on his journey, he was pickpocketed. And now he was completely broke because that was in the day when you literally carried all your money on you, right?
Sure.
Physically. He got a loan from a fellow writer and abolitionist he just happened to meet in Washington. He stumbled upon him.
Wow.
In order for him to get to Virginia, which isn't that far, but it's a war-torn country.
If it's a small world now, it was such a smaller world back then.
Absolutely. To his relief, his brother only suffered a minor facial injury at that point. Like it was like a scratch. However, he did witness some true horrors of this war, as exemplified in the introductory poem of this part. This is what the Whitman... Well, do you have any questions before we keep going?
Goodness, no, I'm loving the lesson.
Mm-hmm. Quote, the sight would continue to haunt this poet who had so confidently celebrated the physical body, who had claimed that the soul existed only in the body, that the arms and legs were extensions of the soul, the legs moving the soul through the world, and the hands allowing the soul to express itself. Now, a generation of young American males, the very males on which he had staked the future of a democracy, were literally being disarmed, amputated, killed. It was this amputation, this fragmenting of the Union, in both a literal and figurative sense, that Whitman would address for the next few years, and he devoted himself to becoming the arms and legs of the wounded and maimed soldiers in the Civil War hospitals.
Wow.
By running errands for them, writing letters for them, and circling them in his arms, which means hugging, Whitman tried to do his best he could to make them whole again, unquote. Yeah, Whitman joins the war effort by volunteering in the hospital service, spending countless sleepless nights in pretty horrible conditions, assisting burials of dead soldiers and assisting both Union and Confederate alike. This service took a major toll on Whitman's physical and mental health as well.
Understandable. Shout out to social workers. Thanks for all that you do.
One of these soldiers was, I think he was 19 when he first met Whitman. So either 19 or 21. So let's just call him a child because he still was basically that.
Sure.
His name was Peter Doyle. Peter was an Irish immigrant from Mississippi fighting for the Confederacy. So wild accent here. He also recently had his leg amputated when the two first met. These two would have a relationship for the rest of Whitman's life, and Whitman admits that it was the most intense and romantic relationship he ever had. They're best friends and beyond that, it seems like. Walt never marries, obviously, and historians speculate his sexuality was probably swayed more towards men, but it could have had the hint of the bi.
Sure, a hint of the bi.
Yeah, those were my words.
Gateway.
Sorry, I mean, I don't know. Just a little pinch of salt, right? Peter Doyle would be one of the men who would often referenced when commenting on his sexuality. We don't talk much about Peter Doyle, but there's very much proof about their relationship. Whitman had a mental breakdown at the end of June of 1864. I wonder why. And his health began to suffer due to all the hospital work. Oh, I guess I just answered that. He moved back to Brooklyn to convalesce. He also wrote throughout his war experiences. Throughout his time experiencing the war, he wrote another collection of 33 poems that would be eventually titled Drum Taps. This collection's purpose was to express patriotism and purpose of the Civil War, with contrasting beautiful imagery to the stuff of horrors you'd see in this type of civil conflict. The collection also contained the poem we mentioned in the first part, Pioneers or Pioneers, which was a very patriotic poem that praised Western expansion, and he commended Manifest Destiny in it. Walt was, after all, a person of his time, and this was a very popular sentiment by white Americans, definitely. So, right, any questions yet? He's a pure nationalist in the sense of the 1860s term, expanding stuff. We've already talked about the Spanish-American War in the first part. It's all over the place.
He's just been through so much.
Mm-hmm.
What a life he's lived, and then to feel the need to represent all of America or everybody in America who's ever suffered. It's like, drink some water. Have a seat. It's like he's doing a lot, and it's no wonder he burnt out. Yeah. So I guess my question is, where does he go from here?
He keeps going. So we've made it to 1865, and the war still has some time to go, a little bit, until it's finally done. The Union is obviously swaying towards victory. In recent history, one of his brothers had just died of TB. We just spoke of him. One is in asylum, and George Washington Whitman finally got captured by the Confederacy.
So Christmases are sad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whitman, kind of off the fly after determining he was healthy to travel again, got a new job in Washington through a friend. Whitman carried his manuscript of drum tax to Washington with him as well, and continued expanding on that work.
When you say job in Washington, did he work for the federal government?
We're literally getting to that.
Okay.
He worked as a clerkship in the Department of the Interior, specifically, and this is what is, I think it's literally called to this day. It definitely was called back then. I don't know if they've ever changed this. So bear with me for historical accuracy at least.
Uh-oh, I'm nervous.
He worked for the Department of Indian Affairs.
Okay, it's still called that, and I literally wrote my senators about it when I was on one, like doom scrolling one night. Mm-hmm. Apparently that's what makes the Native American populations feel the most represented.
Yeah.
Is the long and the short of that.
Okay.
So hopefully that's true, but that is from the office of politicians. So
yeah, I mean, I've also heard that a lot of American American Indians, American natives, they call themselves that. It depends.
They don't want to be called American necessarily.
Yeah,
is part of what that boils down to.
I don't know much about it, so
those are 2 cents there. One from me and one from you.
I grew up in the East Coast. It's got a pretty dark history about that.
Mm-hmm.
His desk was at the U.S. Patent Office building specifically, and he met delegations of various native tribes from the West. We touched upon some of his earlier writing that portrayed Native Americans. I speculated that his attitude was that of definitely cordiality, but also that there's some deeply ingrained stereotypes that remained based off some of the works and poems that I read as well. I don't think anything's really hateful either. However, I just need to note this because during the Civil War, literally within that same time frame, military actions and battles did not cease against the tribes in the West, with Abraham Lincoln signing off on plenty of the actions to secure the safety of white settlers, as what he would say, specifically also to obtain resources from the West for the war. Let's pivot hard here and talk about George Washington Whitman.
I can't get over that name. The ego he must have had.
He was released from Danville Prison, a place of true horror with extremely terrible conditions. There was no furnishings, full of disease, and no health care whatsoever. Deaths of hundreds of prisoners were occurring a month, and this place isn't even like close to the worst prison that was in the South for what's it called?
Prisoners of war.
Prisoner of war. That was Andersonville, which at least Danville you had a roof over your head. Mm-hmm. Andersonville was an open concept prison.
Oy. Dark.
Dark.
Public school failed to mention that part.
The Confederacy was fucked in every way.
Mm-hmm.
And both Walt and his brother returned to Brooklyn with probably a serious amount of PTSD for obvious reasons by March of 1865, with Walt obtaining a furlough from the Bureau. On April Fool's Day of that year, Whit secured a contract to have drum taps published. Only 8 days later did the Civil War finally end, and 5 days after that, President Lincoln got assassinated at Ford's Theater by the son of what was his favorite actor in his childhood.
John Wilkes Booth.
Yes, his father, his favorite actor. Walt quickly wrote and published a sequel to, it was called Sequel to Drum Taps, after the assassination, which both of these were published as separate books within that year. I'm not sure exactly when the sequel was published. I think it was that same year. It might have been the next. This collection of poems contained a powerful elegy to Abraham Lincoln, which is When Lilacs Last in the Doorway Bloomed. A very famous American poet. It also contained probably one of the most significant cultural references attributed to Walt Whitman, which is a poem, "O Captain, My Captain."
Heard of that one.
Many of my friends are now coming to the realization they were quoting poetry and had no clue their entire life. For my own personal desire, I'm going to recite "O Captain, My Captain," because there really aren't a lot of the shorter poems out there. And we have time restrictions here, but
sing it to me.
O captain, my captain, our fearful trip is done. The ship has weathered every rack. The prize we sought is won. The port is near. The bells I hear. The people all exulting. While follow eyes the steady keel. The vessel grim and daring. O heart, heart, heart. O the bleeding drops of red. Where on the deck my captain lies, fallen cold and dead. O captain, my captain, rise up and hear the bells. Rise up, for the flag is flung. For you the bugle trills. For you bouquets and ribboned wreaths. For you the shores a crowding. For you they call the swaying mast, their eagle faces turning. Here, captain, dear father, this arm beneath your head. It is some death that on the deck you've fallen cold in depth. My captain does not answer. His lips are pale and still. My father does not feel my arm. He has no pulse nor will. The ship is anchored safe and sound, its voyage closed and done. My fearful trip, the victor ship, comes in with object won. Exult, O shores, O ring, O bells, but I, with mournful tread, walk the dead my captain lies, fallen cold and dead. It is clearly a poem about Abraham Lincoln's death, right? It's also a brilliant poem in that it's one of the only ones that he actually writes in a true meter and rhyme scheme.
Interesting. Yeah.
Which is interesting that he chose.
It's very soft in that way. It's like easy to listen to.
It's interesting that he chooses to rhyme and have a meter for this specific poem too.
I wonder if it's kind of like a sign of respect and, I don't know, formality. That the occasion is that serious that he's kind of, buttoning his shirt up, tying his tie, and like really doing it.
Yeah. After Lincoln's assassination, a new administration takes office. Pretty bad one too. Arguably one of the worst ones to ever have. But, I think we're breaking records right now. The new Secretary of the Interior was a person named James Harlan of Iowa. He came with the goal of getting rid of anybody who had questionable moral characteristics and abolish, quote unquote, non-essential positions, unquote.
Doge.
Yeah, sounds familiar, right?
Heard that one before.
Now quoting the Walt Whitman archive again of what happens next, and this is a little longer quote. So any questions so far?
No. On we go.
When James Harlan saw Whitman's working a copy of the 1860 version of Leaves of Grass, which the poet kept at his desk so he could revise his poems during slow times at work.
Sounds like someone I know.
He was appalled. On June 20th, Whitman, along with a number of other Interior Department employees, received a dismissal notice. Whitman quickly turned to his fiery friend O'Connor, who at that time worked in the Treasury Department. O'Connor, at some risk of his own career, took immediate action. He contacted the Assistant Attorney General, who in turn talked back to Harlan, only to find that not only was Harlan dead set against rescinding the dismissal order, he was ready to prevent Whitman from getting work in any other governmental agency.
Okay, too personal, sounding gay. Maybe Whitman rejected him.
Yeah. Then the Assistant Attorney General talked to Harlan out of interfering with Whitman's appointment outside of the Interior, and then he convinced Attorney General, another Attorney General, to hire Whitman for his office. Whitman became a clerk in the Attorney General's office that very next day. Like, he liked the work better.
They thought AI moved fast. Holy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. There was no onboarding process back then.
Jeez.
It's said that he almost certainly aided in the preparation of requests for pardons from Confederates and later copied documents for delivering to the president and cabinet members for these pardons.
Awesome.
Yeah. He held this job until 1874.
Wow.
Another very complicated part of history. Definitely. Yeah,
Democracy, am I right?
This is bureaucracy for sure. I mean, there are some, I don't know, there's definitely a lot of the people who were pardoned should not have been pardoned. I feel like the common soldier probably was, that's a different argument altogether.
Different episode. Lost in a different library.
Definitely a different book. Post-war, Whitman kept on his writing. First, he published another edition.
How old is he now?
In 18, let's see here. Let's say he was born in 1819. Let's say 69. Nice. He's 50 years old.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Post-war, he did another edition of Leaves of Grass, which this time included drum taps and its sequel, as well as a new edition of a new section called Songs Before Parting. This is 67, so 48. I believe this is the fourth edition. I'm losing track here because a fifth edition happened in 1870 with more poems. We're just going to keep adding these editions. It's like a new edition.
He won't stop editing them, which
No.
means that's another edition.
And then
I mean, he won't stop.
no. Whitman also that's a good pun. Whitman also wrote essays and further continued to write poetry, much of which were published in the early 1870s. However, his health did start to decline throughout this decade because of the Civil War. He had a stroke on January 23rd, 1873,
No.
which left his left arm and leg debilitated. It says debilitized, but
Debilitized. I like that word.
I do too. We're going to make it famous now.
That's a new one.
Yes. He moved with his brother, George Washington Whitman. Never not funny.
Never gets old.
No, in his home in, you want to guess where?
Long Island.
Camden, New Jersey.
Okay. What a way to go out.
He actually moved into his mother's old rooms as he moved right before she passed away, and then moved into those rooms after she passed away.
Oh, boy.
I know. It's when things go good, they go really bad for him. He returned to Washington one last time, hoping this move to Camden was temporary. And I know I don't like to make fun of people where they live, but Camden is a pretty rough place today. It is not the
Which kind of rough?
It is. It has been many times in our lifetimes considered the worst place to live in the United States.
Perfect.
Yes.
That kind of rough.
That kind of rough.
Forbes bottom 100.
Literally the worst. It's gotten better because it couldn't get worse. But with the illness, he could not continue working in Washington, so that move to Camden was permanent. And it was a different city back then. Camden's literally on the other side of the bridge from Philadelphia.
Okay.
It was in the later half of this decade and early next that his work began to be also internationally acclaimed by English authors specifically, and would see a lot of success overseas, and this is when it starts to get growing. A special American centennial version of Leaves of Grass would be published in 1876, and a separate collection called Two Rivulets that happened at that same time. Then another printer purchased a separate typeset of an older edition and manufactured more bootleg copies starting in 1879.
Awesome.
So as soon as he thinks he's making money, he can. And then this is getting more dizzying, but another edition of Leaves of Grass was published in 1881. It was all this time, Whitman is dictating.
He's just sitting in bed, stroked out.
No, he's
going let's actually change where this comma goes.
Yeah, literally. It's to that pettiness. Like, but I wouldn't say, but it's that meticulousness.
Mm-hmm. It's sounding like
Petty.
diagnosable at this point.
I mean,
Bit obsessive. Again, drink some water.
Mm-hmm. Many attribute to this day that this is the definitive edition and collection, this 1880-81, though there were at least two more that were published, right? So we're not going to talk too much about those two, and I don't have that one. I have the latest one and most people actually have that one nowadays.
I wonder which one I have now.
Curious.
I don't remember.
The year after the definitive one was published, Boston's district attorney threatens to prosecute the publisher unless obscene sections were edited out.
Oh, obscene.
I mean, I am the body electric. Yum, yum, yum. I know.
You do. It's smut, basically.
Smut
Smitman.
Look, Boston has still a puritanical streak to it to this day. Whitman had to find another publisher in Philadelphia, which was across the river from him. The last two editions happened in 1889 and on his deathbed, which we'll talk about. Overall, somewhere between 6 to 9 editions were published, which is a pretty cool and nice sounding number. And that variance is due to, honestly, how certain people view the definition of what a new edition is. You know, I think New Edition was the band that came after, and this is going to be a bad joke. God damn it.
Buckle up. Here it comes. He's pushing it out.
Guys who made Shadow Play, Love Will Tear Us Apart. Why am I... Joy Division. Thank you. Is it Joy? There's a New Order.
Love will tear us apart.
Who made the song Age of Consent, Love?
That's New Order.
New Order. It's New Order that I'm thinking of. Never mind. I'm just going to strike all this off the record.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was fun. No, I'm going to keep that because your voice on Love Will Tear Us Apart is great, and people need to know that I make mistakes. Some say a new edition.
He's not perfect, y'all, despite what you might think.
Yeah, so some say a new edition can only occur when a book is published with a new typeset and format. Others say when it was being republished. I'm going to stick to 9 because it's a bigger number.
Yeah.
Also, let's note that now his poems would often be updated and changed into better and bigger versions. He would eventually let some poems rest and be done with them, but he was constantly updating the newer versions all throughout his life. There was a debate I once heard between some modern poets, these Irish poets, Jerry Murphy and Greg Delanty, where one believed that there's an end point to a poem, and another believed that a poem is basically a living thing that continuously be updated. I kind of believe in the latter than the former. You can constantly be updating and editing it because why not? Mm-hmm. As long as you save and preserve the previous ones. But,
right.
Yeah.
And therein lies an edition.
A new edition. A new order. On April 14th, 1887, Whitman took the stage for the last time, basically, to give a lecture on Abraham Lincoln. Among those in attendance was writer Mark Twain and U.S. Army Commander William Tecumseh Sherman, back from, I presume, genociding Native Americans.
What one can safely assume.
Yeah. William Tecumseh Sherman is one of the most mixed U.S. generals in history because of his successful march into the sea against the Confederacy. Have you know that song "March to the Sea" by Modest Mouse? No, it's based off it. People from Georgia do not like Tecumseh Sherman.
Okay, noted.
Yes. Walt Whitman, suffering from bad health for nearly 20 years, finally passes away on March 26, 1892, at the age of 72, in his home in Camden. Right
before his birthday.
Yeah. Towards the end of his life, a neighbor moved in and she helped with what he couldn't physically do. The cause of his death is officially listed as, quote, pleurisy of the left side, consumption of the right lung, general miliary tuberculosis, and parenchymatous nephritis. Nailed
Definitely, and I've always said that.
Nailed it. The autopsy showed that his lungs had diminished 1/8 of their size due to bronchial pneumonia.
Ooh.
I know.
Owie, no breathing.
Whitman's legacy cannot be overstated. Though he was not very financially successful throughout his life, that's not fair because he wasn't really want for money. His impact on American society and English literature as a whole is felt everywhere. To say he is a poet that embodied America would not be an understatement, frankly. Mm-hmm. And that was honestly a goal he drove towards. He certainly was a person of his time, many ways, politically speaking, and, physically speaking, I think. I also need to shoehorn his religious beliefs at the end here, since I didn't really know where else to put him. Whitman was a lifelong deist, which the Oxford Dictionary defines as a belief in existence of a supreme being, specifically of a creator who does not intervene in the universe. The term is used chiefly of an intellectual movement of the 17th and 18th centuries that accepted the existence of a creator on the basis of reason, but rejected belief in a supernatural deity who interacts with humankind. Unquote.
Okay.
This is
that.
Incredibly important.
Okay.
In understanding American society when it first originally developed, because many of the American founding fathers were deists, and he was following them.
Okay.
Meaning they weren't these Christian fundamentalists that people are claimed today. We have that. I'm not saying we don't. Mm-hmm. Puritans, absolutely.
Yeah.
Anybody who has
But
ever...
the people who founded the colonies, the reason for the colonies is different than the reason for America in theory as we know it today, or have been told it today.
These founding fathers, this is a who's list. This is the top of all the society. I just found the easiest ones. Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, and I'm going to sneak in a Vermonter, Ethan Allen.
Ethan Allen.
Some of his works have been discovered also postmortem. One of the wackiest examples of this was published as a health guide called Manly Health and Training under a pen name, I think it's Mose Velzor. Close enough.
I gotta get my hands on that. It's called what? Manly what?
Manly Health and Training. It was a self-help guide for men that recommended how to shave your beard in a certain way, how to properly nude bathe, which shoes were most comfortable, bathing daily in cold water.
Okay, it's kind of giving Men's Health / GQ.
And eating exclusively meat-based diets.
Exclusively meat-based diets.
He went Jordan Peterson at the end.
Absolutely, absolutely.
He's definitely not that. I can't believe I just compared him to that, but it's so funny. It's a bit over the top, but it does jive with his whole like vibe of manly love. That's for sure.
I just love the idea that he's America's poet, and he's also like, what about a self-help book? I could be a life coach. What?
It's funny that he did.
He has been through some shit, as we established.
It was published in 1858, so it was before. I think it was
before his stroke.
It was around the same time as some of the earliest versions of Leaves of Grass. So yeah, before before his first stroke. Yes.
An interesting man.
Mm-hmm.
An interesting man.
Yes. The last thing I want to touch upon is that his house is now in the Registry of National Historic Sites, right? It was located on 428 Mickle Street in Camden until the road was expanded and the address changed to 430 Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard, still in Camden. I know you've never been here before. I can only... Have you been to even Philly before?
I actually haven't, no.
Yeah. So if you've ever gone to a concert, listener, in Camden at the Freedom Mortgage Pavilion, also known as the Waterfront Entertainment Center, you have almost 100% certainly passed his home on the way back because it's just like a one-way in and one-way out of the street. Dr. MLK Jr. Boulevard over there. And that's that.
And that's that.
Go finish him. Go finish him.
Go finish him.
Go visit it. It's right there in the city. It's always going to be kept up as long as there's money to keep it up, because I'll tell you what, it's not in a good part of Camden. I did Google Street View on that, and there was a lot of boarded up houses there, unfortunately.
Wow.
Any questions about America's early America poet? Like, he is America's poet in a way, at least the earlier one.
So was his only gay lover that 19-year-old that he met when he was doing the social work?
It was, it was
the
all
amputee?
his life. I don't know much more other ones. I have no clue.
Wow. I thought he'd be gayer even.
I don't know.
And that was, I guess, an expectation I was holding.
Manly health. So anecdotally, I once saw, it was one of those days that the English teacher just didn't show up to high school, and it was a history honors class. So like, I don't know, the guy who showed up to do the substitution came in and literally rolled in a TV.
Miss those, love those. Conceptually, I love that.
Yeah, watched a video on Walt Whitman's life, and one of the interviewers was Allen Ginsberg. Who, yeah,
invented the printing press.
Sure,
right?
Allen Ginsberg. He was a
get that wrong?
He was a
beatnik poet.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, but Ginsberg was the printing press guy.
You're thinking of somebody completely different.
Yeah, like back when that was literally invented.
Yeah. Now it's driving me crazy.
I'm gonna look it up. I have to.
The Gutenberg press.
Thank you.
Yeah. The Gutenberg Bible.
Johann.
Yeah. Yes, it was. Yeah, it's exactly it.
Johannes Gutenberg. We did it. We're like kind of smart. Like, you know
History
what I mean?
majors. So Ginsberg was talking about somebody he slept with that was an older gentleman who was a younger person at the time, and he 100% slept with Whitman, and they was like making that.
Ginsburg did.
Whitman's lover slept with Whitman. I'll never forget that in like a Catholic school being like, this is like salacious and crazy that you're letting us watch this.
Yeah, this is against your own morals, but sure.
Ginsburg was also not necessarily the most honest person in the world.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
New
That
York,
was fascinating.
I think one thing I didn't expect out of him was how much of a New York City and Brooklyn poet he was. I thought he was a little bit more rural, but
Me
no.
too. I think we probably assumed that from like Leaves of Grass and stuff, like just more nature exposure, but definitely a city dweller.
Definitely. All right. I'm going to plug and do some the sources without any other things that you
Hit
want to talk. Okay. Major resource was the Walt Whitman archive, obviously, PBS articles, Poetry Foundation articles. My edition was the final 1892 edition, which the introduction was Justin Kaplan, variety of wiki articles, and, I plugged my stuff in the earlier part. I don't need to do this at this point. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you, Phil.
Buenos Clares.
Good times getting lost in the library with you.
Yeah, thanks for making this happen.
My pleasure. All I did was nothing.
Cheers.
See you next time.